Hey everyone, welcome back to another ICM 2.0 Python version video. In our last two videos, we have talked through basic conditionals using if and else off canvas, conditionals using if, elif, and else off canvas, and it is finally time that we take those things that we have been learning and we apply them to an on-screen, on-canvas coding project. This one is going to start really simple. It might even seem like a little silly at times because it's going to involve some really specific situations, but it'll help us just get an idea of what this could be used for. So I have some starter code that I've already made a copy of. As usual, it'll be linked in the description below. Please take a moment to make a copy of your starter code, get your screen set up so that you can code comfortably while watching this video. And remember that you are welcome to pause and rewatch at any time. Now, in this program, it's fairly simple. We are back to using processing. We have a setup, we have a draw, and we have two shapes on our screen. We have an ellipse and we have a rectangle. The rectangle I'm going to leave for you guys to do a challenge on your own. The ellipse is what we are going to focus on. And I have a vision for this ellipse. What I would like to have happen is when my mouse is on the left side of the screen, I want the ellipse to be one color. When it's on the right side of the screen, I want it to be a different color. And if I manage to find the exact middle, like exactly 200, which I realize is very hard to do, I want it to be a third color. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start sectioning out my code a little bit. Personally, when I am coding, I like to have my drawing, like the stuff on the canvas, in one location. So right now for me, that is lines 7 to 12. And I like to have my conditionals underneath them in like a labeled location so that if I know I need to change a conditional, I know where to go. I also like to leave like very clear comments about what the conditional is for, because once we're just looking at like numbers and if and else, it can be very confusing if we need to go back and debug or edit. So I'm going to leave a comment that this is for the top ellipse. And I want it to change color on left, right, and center of screen. So I know I'm going to need an if, an else if, and an else. I could be more specific with this code. I could write, for example, if on left, turn blue, elif in center, actually, elif in center, turn green. I could keep going and code out my else, which would be on the right, any other place. I'm not going to, just because it's long and I don't know what colors I want to use off the top of my head, but that is a best practice when you guys are working. Now, because I know that my ellipse is going to be changing color, I should have a little like ding, ding, ding going off in my head that if something is going to change, I'm going to need a variable for it. So I'm going to go ahead and make a circ color variable, and I am actively waiting for this to be the moment that it betrays me and gives me some like scoping error. I'm going to have my color start as magenta, and magenta is ultimately what I want it to turn back to when I'm on the right side of the screen. So I'm going to see this number again. I am using magenta because it's easy and I know what it is. If you'd like to use a different color, please feel free. I want to make sure I can use this cert color here. And I also want to make sure that I can update my cert color variable. So at the top of my draw, I'm just going to make a note of global variables that I'm using. And I'm just going to make a note that I'm using global cert color. If I don't declare global cert color, and at some time later I have cert color equals something, it's going to think that is a brand new variable. It's just not going to work the way I intended. So I'm going to give this ellipse a fill of the cert color. So that is the one thing that is changing. I'm going to hit stop. I'm going to hit run. Perfect. Everything is that color. If I wanted to, I could just make the ellipse white again for now, just so it's distinct. And now I'm ready to go. I have my comments where I'm going to code things. I have a variable that the draw function recognizes is global and changing, and I can look forward to that happening. I am, just as an aside, not just declaring it here and giving it a value, because the draw function, if we recall, runs forever. If I give things a value here, unless something truly interesting is happening, it's going to keep resetting to whatever that is whenever we're drawing. So we're not going to get to see the change. So that is the purpose for giving a value here, declaring it's global here, and then utilizing it in our conditionals. So let's get right down to it. Let's see what this will look like if I'm using it in a conditional. Now, I want to say if to start us off, and please note this if statement, different than when we saw it off canvas, it is now in line with everything else that's in my draw function. That's because this conditional is inside my draw function, so it should be indented just like everything else. Things inside my conditional are going to be indented even further, which we'll see in just a second. So if I'm on the left side of my screen, left and right, I know I'm talking about mouse X. And if mouse X is less than 200, that's how I know I'm on the left. So mouse X less than 200 : I hit enter and you'll see again, tabbed under. So now I'm tabbed under 3 times, which tells me I'm part of draw and I'm part of this if statement. I want my cert color to change to, let's do yellow. Again, know it off the top of my head. And I'm going to leave a comment that that's what it is. So if, again, I decide to go back and change it, I can. And something I want to point out to us now that we're back on the canvas is we can still use that console to help us out. So it might be really useful to leave a print statement that says mouse on left so that we just know that it works as intended. There's a very real world where people can mix up the less than and the greater than. If you had it turned around, you wouldn't get this print statement on this side. You also wouldn't get the color on this side. And it's hard sometimes to tell if the code inside your conditional is what's broken or if your Boolean statement is the problem. And sometimes just having something that will fire, like a print statement, can help you decide. If you were to get the print statement but no color change, you would know that something about how we're using this variable is the issue. If you were to get nothing from here, you would know that your Boolean statement is the issue. So I'm going to flip this back around. And I'm going to go ahead and stop and play. It starts out magenta because I have not engaged with my canvas yet. But as I move my mouse over, oh, it looks like nothing's happening. That's fun. So it looks like I have an error somewhere. Oh, it says value 1, value 255. Oh, this is my bad. So this is important and I'm glad we're seeing this. And I hope I didn't mess it. No, I did it in one place. I'm getting an error that this is not an int, a float, a string, which you'll talk more about in a few lessons. I need to remind it that I'm talking about a color. So I just need to have that color word in front. Anticipate that you're going to make this mistake a lot. It happens. So now if I run it, oh, I'm yellow right away. So the reason I'm yellow right away is because we can see in the corner when I'm off the canvas, it starts me at 0, 0. That's less than 200. So it turns yellow. And even though my initial was magenta, happened very quickly, like before we could even see it, it goes to yellow. If I move all around the screen, nothing happens. So let's code in what I would like to have happen. I would like to have an elif. And again, we're going to get a little silly with this. There are definitely more efficient ways that you could be writing this code. We are practicing. I'm going to say that if mouse X is exactly 200, and notice these are numbers, they're no longer words, which we call strings, so they're not in quotes. Then I want my cert color to change to cyan. I'll leave a note that this is cyan. And I'm going to print mouse in middle. And now before we test it, just for the heck of it, let's go ahead and give ourselves another elif and an else. And I'll explain why this is silly in just a minute. I'm going to give myself an elif mouse X greater than 200. And I'm going to say in that case, my cert color should be back to magenta, because we love magenta. And I'll print mouse on right so that we see it. And now here's where we're getting silly. I have used elif statements for all the possible scenarios on this canvas. I did not really need to have 3 elif statements here, or sorry, 2 elif statements here. I could have done it with an if and an else. I could have done it with an if, an elif, and an else. But again, we are practicing. Right now, less than 200, exactly 200, more than 200, those are the only places my mouse can be. But we are going to imagine, what if some space and what if some vortex in the space-time continuum opens up and there's suddenly another place my mouse can be in the number line? Then let's just go ahead and turn our cert color to black. That's all. So we're never going to see black on the canvas. I just want to let you know that is not going to happen open. I will put like universal anomaly as my print statement. We're hopefully never going to see that. But again, we are just practicing structure. If I stop and run again, you're going to see that it starts telling me mouse on left the whole time. When I go into the exact center, I get to cyan, takes me a minute to get there. And as soon as I cross over, it goes to magenta. And you can see that my printouts in my console are changing as well. If you get tired of seeing the printouts, or if you need something else, you can always go through and just turn these into comments. My bad. To comment out something that you are highlighting, again, you are holding down your command key on a Mac or your control key on a PC, and you're hitting the / button, and that will turn it into a comment. Now it will behave the same way as before, but the comments aren't there. If an error were to occur, I would comment things back in and test again. Now, here is your task. Your challenge is going to be to make this rectangle change based on if the mouse is at the top, middle, or bottom of your screen. I would recommend using the very inefficient structure we did before, just so you can practice writing all of those pieces, and then maybe comment it out and try and write in the most efficient way you can think of and see if it still functions as intended. You're going to need a variable for the rectangle. You're going to need to make sure you've announced that the variable is global. You can just put a comma after cert color and the name of your next global variable. That will make sure that you can change the color inside your conditional. And then you will, of course, write your conditional, hopefully with good commentary, so that looking back, you will have a reference for what you were doing. This is your first step towards making very complex, interesting programs. The last thing we have to learn is using logical operators like and or, and you will see that in the next video. Bye.